Destiny 2 PvP. I probably just sent a shiver down your spine uttering that phrase, but it's yet again time to talk about it. The emergency dev team assembled by Bungie, dubbed the PvP Strike Team, has asked for our feedback on the current overall Crucible experience. So today's video is aimed at answering one question. What could Bungie actually do to, quote, save Destiny 2 PvP? I have way more hours in Destiny 2 than I want to admit, and 90% of them are in PvP.
I promise you it's not an addiction, okay?
I also read thousands of chat messages a week from all parts of the community, from the full-time working dad that only has a few hours a week to play, to the I haven't left my mom's basement in 6 years super sweat. I've been able to hear a lot from both sides of the coin. So I'm going to take my own experiences as well as everything I've heard from you guys into account for this. But it's important to say that you might disagree with some or all of these points, and that's perfectly okay. I don't have all the right answers. I want this to be the start of a discussion, so please let Bungie hear your feedback in the comments. All right, fasten your seatbelts and keep those arms and legs inside the ride at all times, because this is gonna be a long one. The first area we're going to address is very big picture. While obviously the sandbox balance is important, and we'll touch on that later, as the game director of Destiny 2, Joe Blackburn, said, the problems with Crucible are very deep rooted and go way beyond just sandbox. I also believe that Bungie didn't just put this group of devs together to walk in the Sandbox's team office and say, hey, so could we, like, you know, nerf SMGs yet, maybe? Please. They're aiming at overarching core issues, which the biggest for me is playlist identity. It feels as if each playlist is having an identity crisis. It doesn't know why it's there or why players should even play it. Is Trials supposed to be the end game of PvP where you go to sweat it out and show off your skills? Or is that comp? Is quick play supposed to be the fun mode where you can go play with friends of any skill level? Or does the strict feeling skill-based matchmaking block that? Well, here's how I see it. Let's start with everyone's favorite PvP mode, Trials. This is by far the playlist I spend the most time in, and right now it's the main attraction of PvP. But I'm gonna hit you with a glass of ice cold water here. Trials should no longer be the end game PvP mode that it has been. When I think about Trials, a few years ago I would have said, yep, that's the end game of PvP. That is the pinnacle. And while I still think it needs to have the challenge in order to keep its appeal, Trials should be a very inviting place for the average player. When Trials has a high population, things are great. Everyone loves when there's a brand new shiny gun to chase, and when the map is good. That loot needs to be accessible to many people. You want the masses to feel like they have a chance of reaching the lighthouse, because I mean, it's arguably the most aspirational objective in Destiny. But when the population gets low due to a variety of reasons, Trials gets so sweaty that most players don't even feel like it's worth trying. That needs to change. I see Trials as the, quote, mainstream playlist that is a really solid loot grab and a fun thing to attempt with friends. Players shouldn't feel hopeless when going into the playlist. It should be about chasing the loot, not where the super hardcore players go to show off their skills anymore. That is for the next playlist we're gonna discuss, which is competitive. Oh boy, comp in Destiny 2 needs a lot of help right now. Comp should be the place for the high-end PvP players to go and prove that they're the best. While the comp rework late last year was a step in the right direction, there were still so many promises that now honestly feel left empty. The problem with the old competitive mode was that it didn't feel endlessly grindable. It didn't have loot incentive, and it didn't feel like it represented your skill level well at all. While the loot incentive was semi-addressed, the other two areas were left so far behind. Hardcore PvP players in almost every FPS want two things. One, to have a place to sink as many hours into as possible with high replayability. And two, to show off their mastery of the game in a variety of ways. AKA, they want to flex. What I'm about to say is definitely my most wanted feature in the Crucible right now. And in my eyes, it would do wonders for the whole ecosystem. Uncap the comp points, Bungie. Please. As I said before, all the sweat players want to do is grind, 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 and they want something to show for it. While a new Ascendant emblem every season is great, the top players can hit that within the first week, and sometimes the first day. That simply should not be possible. After players hit Ascendant, there's no reason for them to play comp at all anymore for the rest of the season, unless they're gonna play 3 matches every week for the comp weapon. Comp can and should be a season-long grind where hardcore players are constantly wanting to dive in the playlist. If you uncap the rank, there will be endless replayability that not even Trials can offer, and a seasonal race to the top of leaderboards that will keep every hardcore PvP player engaged daily. Speaking of leaderboards, we need that too. Even if it wasn't a fully fleshed out in-game leaderboard, which would be the best case scenario, if third-party websites such as Destiny Tracker were able to provide it, it would give those players a way to show off and say, look, I'm top 500 in the world this season. I'm actually gonna get signed to an org and I'm gonna go pro playing Destiny. They would feel like their time was rewarded. In order for this to work though, we need true rank-based matchmaking in comp, where you aren't a gold 2 matching an ascendant player just because some hidden MMR thinks you're good. We need that true ladder-based system that we were promised. The final point I'll make on comp for now is that we need a comp memento. Mementos are one of the coolest and most innovative additions you've made to Destiny, Bungie. We all want to see more of them, and comp would be a perfect place to have one. Imagine a comp memento that you could get weekly for playing 3 games that would adapt to the color of your rank. I'm not a game dev, so I don't know how technically challenging that would be, but man, players of all skill levels I'm sure would love to just again be able to show off how they stack up. All right, next is
Iron Banner.
It's ironic that a heavy theme of Iron Banner is fire because man, it has been an absolute dumpster fire this year. Iron Banner used to be such a beloved event by the community and had everyone so excited when Saladin came to the tower. But now it's so sad to see that when IB week rolls around, people see it and say, all right, well, I guess it's time for my monthly break from Destiny 2. I mean, a lot of people think the game would literally be better without it at this point. All the new game modes and experiments we're getting are fantastic to see, but that can only do so much. I think the main problem with Iron Banner is that there really isn't anything worth chasing anymore. I mean, what happened to weapons like Multi-Mock, Steady Hand, or even Clever Dragon from Destiny 1? It also used to house some of the best and most sought after armor sets in the whole game. And when they brought armor sets back, they didn't even bring the best one. It feels like those days are now just a distant memory. Another big problem in my opinion, and against my better judgment, I'm gonna say the forbidden words. But there really should not be skill-based matchmaking in Iron Banner. I know. I said it. Sue me. Iron Banner had such a great reputation of bringing everyone together to mindlessly play some fun PvP with friends, try out different builds, and not have a care in the world. While I think fireteam-based matchmaking in this mode specifically is probably for the best, SBMM has completely thrown off that special feel of IB, because now if you're an average to high skill player and you bring in your more casual friend, they're gonna have an absolutely awful time. It feels like if you're not leaned in 2 inches away from your screen using the most meta loadout possible, you're going to get crushed. Iron Banner badly needs to return to that lighthearted mode it used to be, and it really needs some great weapons and armor as soon as possible. The next big topic we're going to dive into is Sandbox. I see the Sandbox as more of a short-term issue, and this is backed up by the PvP Strike team and the Sandbox team already having some really great changes in the pipeline. Changes to Antaeus Wards, Peregrine Greaves, and Synthoceps. These changes are very good, but they still have lots of work to do. The first big pain point I think of when I hear Sandbox has to be SMGs. SMGs have been the go-to weapon for any close to medium range engagement in PvP for far too long, and I think Bungie knows that. The problem is, it feels like every Sandbox update, SMGs get some tuning and people breathe a sigh of relief because maybe, finally, they won't be super meta anymore. But SMGs just keep rising to the top of the most used weapon charts. And when one SMG gets nerfed, a brand new power crept one releases and takes its place immediately. SMGs are way too easy to use, and they don't present any risk for the reward. We'll have to wait and see just how effective the upcoming recoil increase will be. But outside of SMGs and a few other isolated weapons, the weapons Sandbox really isn't that bad right now, especially after the zoom and range decoupling update. My biggest problem with the current Sandbox is a phrase you've probably heard a million times: ability uptime. Bungie in the past has said that their ideal crucible was 60% gunplay and 40% abilities. They also said that they didn't want abilities to fully decide engagements. They should just give you an upper hand. The 30th anniversary event felt like it perfectly met these goals that Bungie laid out. For the most part, this was the happiest the community has been with the Sandbox since Beyond Light released in 2020. Shortly after, with the launch of Witch Queen, however, Doomsday hit. Bungie started rolling out the 3.0 subclasses that would take build crafting to a whole new dimension. These updates for the overall health of the game were stellar. The depth and power fantasy it brought to our Guardians kit breathed new life into Destiny and completely changed how we play the game. However, these updates were way out of control in PvP. The seemingly perfect cooldown balance that Bungie had laid out for the 30th anniversary very quickly got overtaken by this new system. Since then, Bungie has been slowly trying to rein in the insane amount of ability spam that was made possible with the 3.0 subclasses. But it's a tough balance because you want to keep that space magic power fantasy that makes Destiny. So here's one solution that I came up with. I think in core 6v6 modes and extra modes, leave the full spectrum of build crafting and power fantasy in players' hands. But what would be a compromise is if we got a modifier in Trials and competitive that would significantly increase the overall ability cooldown, outside of supers of course. That way, Trials and comp would feel more like a curated experience with a more quote balanced sandbox. I know, how dare I say the word balanced in a PvP video, but it would allow players to still have that super chaotic classic Destiny experience in other modes. Bungie also just released the new checkmate modifier, and after gathering some community feedback and maybe a few tweaks, that mode could be the solution here. Something just has to be done about these abilities because nobody likes getting a grenade thrown at them literally every fight, or watching a Titan sit behind their shield taunting you to push for 20 seconds straight. Alright, everything up to this point is more of the needs in PvP. If you've made it here in the video, this last section is going to be really fun because we're going to discuss our wants. This is sort of a wish list built from my own experiences and the feedback I've gathered from you guys. I will give you a fair warning though. A lot of this feels like we're shooting for the stars, but I do truly think that this PvP strike team is built to make massive changes, and I think these are pretty reasonable asks. The first item on this list is going to involve a mode we haven't even talked about yet, private matches. Private matches released back in 2018, and minus adding a few new modes and the new maps, it literally has not been touched since. It would be really nice if we could get more features, modifiers, settings in private matches. Settings like being able to set how much health Guardians have, or manipulating or even disabling special and heavy ammo spawns. Giving more players freedom to explore Destiny in an isolated environment will simply allow them to be creative and build the exact Destiny 2 experience that they want. Another highly requested private match feature is spectate mode. Not only would the spectate mode be super helpful for those who want to host tournaments or super fun events, it would also benefit the creative crowd that wants to go take some cool screenshots or make cinematics. We already have a bare-bone version of this built into the game. When you die in Trials or get knocked out in comp, you spectate your teammate in third person. Giving us the ability to do that in private matches and switch between the perspectives of both teams would be so huge. Ideally, you'd be able to switch between watching the first-person point of view and the third-person point of view, but it doesn't have to be a fully fleshed out theater mode with replays of matches or anything like that. Just give more players tools to explore Destiny, Bungie, and that can only enhance our experience. Another addition that's had a lot of discussion is map voting. It's no secret that there are some fan-favorite maps and then maps players absolutely dread. Looking at you, Disjunction. A big theme of this section is player choice, and having the ability to select from a few random maps every game would significantly improve players' experience in PvP, because again, they can choose what their experience will be. Map voting would need to be implemented in quick play and the competitive modes, with the quick play map pool being large and full of variety, and comp featuring a smaller pool of select maps. Maps like Javelin 4, Burnout, Endless Veil, the ones that the community over the years has really grown to like, should be the main focus in comp. Not only would map voting be extremely nice to have from a player's perspective, the data Bungie would get from map voting could also help them see what maps people really enjoy in certain modes. This could help them identify the best attributes of each map and take that data into account when building new maps in the future. But yeah, map voting would be an absolutely huge one. All right, that is my full TED Talk on the current state of Destiny 2 PvP. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the points I made, and if you think I missed anything, let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys again soon.